Hi everyone. This video will show you how to identify and differentiate the monosaccharides easily based on their structures. In our syllabus, we have learned about 5 types of the monosaccharide. So these will include the glucose, galactose, fructose, ribose, and deoxyribose. So how we can differentiate all of them? By using 3 simple steps. So the step 1, we will always look at their shape. So all of these monosaccharides, they are either pentose sugar or the hexose sugar. So the first step is always look at their shape. If let's say the sugar, if let's say the sugar show a hexagon, if let's say show the hexagon, then that will means that these will be either the glucose or the galactose, or galactose. But if let's say the sugar is showing the pentagon, if it's showing a pentagon, let me draw it. Might be a pentagon like this. Okay, then it will be either the fructose or the ribose or the deoxyribose. Okay, so now we look at this part first. The hexagon part. So it can be either the glucose or the galactose. So how we can further differentiate them? So the next step is we will look at their carbon number 4. We will look at the carbon number 4. So in the hexagon, it will be an oxygen here. It will be an oxygen. So this would be the carbon number 1. This will be the carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number 4, carbon number 5, and then up here it will be the carbon number 6. And this is normally shown as a CH2OH. This carbon number 6 is normally shown as CH2OH. Okay, so in order to further differentiate whether this is a glucose or galactose, we need to go into step number 2. Step number 2. Okay, so before that, let me show this first. Let's show the arrow first. So that is the first step. Okay, so now if let's say it is a glucose, this is step number 2. So in step number 2, we will look at the carbon number 4. We'll look at carbon number 4. So in carbon number 4, at carbon number 4, which is here, we will look at the OH group at the carbon number 4. If OH group at the carbon number 4 is at the bottom plane, at the bottom plane, then this will be the glucose. It will be the glucose. And if let's say at carbon number 4, the OH group is at the upper plane, then that will mean that this is a galactose. So that is the step number 2. Then by differentiate the glucose and the galactose, then next, going into the step number 3, we can differentiate the alpha or beta glucose, alpha or beta galactose. Okay, so to find out whether this is alpha or beta, then we will look at carbon number 1. So step number 3 is we will look at carbon number 1. So in carbon number 1, the same thing again. So I will copy the structure here. Now at carbon number 1 is here. Same thing, we will look at the position of the OH. If let's say at carbon number 1, the OH is at the bottom plane, then that means that this is a alpha glucose. But if let's say at the carbon number 1, the OH is at the upper plane, then that means that this is a beta glucose. The same idea will apply to the galactose as well. So in galactose, same thing, I will just copy down the galactose. Now we have the galactose here. So for galactose, to know whether this is alpha or beta, same thing, we will look at the carbon number 1. So if let's say for the carbon number 1, the OH group is on the upper plane, then that means that this is the beta galactose. So with that, now with 3 steps, we can differentiate the glucose and galactose, and we can differentiate whether it is alpha or beta. So with that, yes, that is for the first part, for the hexagon part. Then next, we look at the pentagon. So in pentagon, it can be either fructose, ribose, or deoxyribose. Okay, so how are we going to differentiate that? Yeah, so in step 2, the first thing, the second step will differentiate the fructose with other pentose sugar. This fructose is actually a hexose sugar. So meaning that the fructose is having 6 carbon. It is having 6 carbon. So that's why in step number 2, it would be the number of the carbon. Based on the number of the carbon, then you can count that. It would be a pentagon. Okay, so this would be an O in the center here. If you see that there are CH2OH and another one CH2OH at both sides. And when you count that, that will be 1 carbon, 2 carbon, 3 carbon, 4 carbon, 5 carbon, and 6 carbon. Yeah, so I will jot that down. Yeah. So this would be carbon number 1. The CH2OH would be carbon number 1. Then carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number 4, carbon number 5, and then the CH2OH again is carbon number 6. So if you find out that that pentagon is having 6 carbon, then that means that these must be the fructose. These must be the fructose. As when you compare, no matter ribose or deoxyribose, they will only have 1 CH2OH. In other words, they will only have 5 carbon. Yeah, they will only have 5 carbon. So this is when, yep, we differentiate based on the number of carbon. So I will same thing, copy back this one. But over here, you will notice one thing, that is they will only have 1 CH2OH. So meaning that their number of carbon will be different. So what you will see carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number 4, and carbon number 5. So there's only 5 carbon. If let's say you find that the pentagon only got 5 carbon, then it means that it is either a ribose or deoxyribose. Okay, so that is step number 2 based on number of carbon. And next, after done with the fructose, okay, so in step number 3, we can further differentiate whether this is alpha fructose or beta fructose. So to differentiate whether it's alpha or beta fructose, this one we will look at the carbon number 2. We'll look at carbon number 2. That is only for fructose. Yeah, that's only for fructose. So for fructose with carbon number 2, same thing again, I will copy it. Oh, sorry. We will look at the OH at carbon number 2 in order to differentiate alpha or beta fructose. So if let's say at carbon number 2, if the OH is at the bottom plane, if the OH is at the bottom plane, then this is definitely the alpha. Yeah, it's definitely the alpha fructose. And if let's say CH2OH is here, and the OH is on the top plane. OH is on the top plane, then this is a beta fructose. So this is the 3-step to identify the fructose, to identify the alpha or the beta fructose. Then lastly, for ribose and deoxyribose. For ribose and deoxyribose, I will put it here. In order to differentiate, in order to differentiate the ribose and deoxyribose, that will need the step number 3. So for step number 3, it is the same. We will still look at the carbon number 2. We will still look at the carbon number 2. Okay, so that means yes, ribose, deoxyribose. Okay, so by looking at their carbon number 2, which is this one, this will be a bit different from the fructose, because fructose, they have 2 CH2OH, so their carbon 1 is this one. Carbon 2 will be here. You can see that the big difference here. While for the ribose or deoxyribose, their carbon 1 is here, carbon 2 will be here. It will be different. Yep, so for the carbon number 2, in order to differentiate the ribose and the deoxyribose, we will look at their carbon number 2, same thing, the OH, the presence of the OH. If let's say we find out that, change to maybe blue color here. So if let's say the OH, the OH is found over here, then that means that this molecule is a ribose molecule. But if let's say you find out that the OH is missing, it is just having a H. If it is only having one H at the carbon number 2, then this is deoxyribose. All right, then mainly our syllabus will be discussed until here. But if let's say, you want to further differentiate the ribose and deoxyribose, can we further differentiate the alpha ribose and beta ribose? alpha deoxyribose and beta deoxyribose? Yes or no? Actually can. It can be done in step number 4, right? So how to further differentiate it is, again, we look at the carbon number 1. Yeah, we look at the carbon number 1. If let's say you want to differentiate alpha or beta. Okay, so we will discuss further here. Down here. If let's say at carbon number 1, the OH group is at the bottom plane. At carbon number 1, if the OH group is at the bottom plane, then same rules will be applied. If it's at the bottom plane, it is alpha. If it is at the upper plane, then it is beta. So same rules apply here. It is at the lower plane, bottom plane, then it is alpha ribose. If it is at the upper plane, then it is considered as a beta ribose. Okay, so same thing goes to the deoxyribose also. We will look at their carbon number 1. Okay, so for this one, since OH is at the lower plane, then we will say this is an alpha ribose. So this is how we differentiate the alpha or the beta. Okay, so with that, you can see that with 3 simple steps, we can differentiate all 5 types of the monosaccharides that we have learned in our syllabus. So one more thing to add on here would be to determine the alpha or beta glucose, we will look at, you can see here, the carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 2. Why we look at this carbon? Well, the key is because these are the anomeric carbon. For example, for glucose or galactose, we look at carbon number 1 because carbon number 1 is the anomeric carbon. Well, for fructose, we will look at carbon number 2. Why we look at carbon number 2? Because carbon number 2 is their anomeric carbon. And same thing goes to ribose or deoxyribose. In order to differentiate their alpha or beta ribose, alpha or beta deoxyribose, we look at their carbon number 1. Reason is the same because carbon number 1 is their anomeric carbon. Okay, so with that, we have done with this, and you can try on this example in order to have a knowledge check. So for the first molecule, yeah, you can see this one. So the first step is we look at the shape. Yeah, we look at the shape. That is step number 1. Yeah. So I will write down step number 1. We will look at the shape. And from the shape, it tells us that this is a hexagon. Yeah, it is an hexagon. So hexagon means that, yeah, it will be either the glucose or the galactose because they are showing us this is hexagon. Yeah, hexagon, it will means that it is either glucose or galactose. Okay, then next we move on to the step number 2. So in step number 2, we will look at the carbon number 4. We will look at carbon number 4. So at carbon number 4, we see that the OH is on top. Yeah, the OH is on top. So if the OH is on top, then there will be only one molecule, which is the galactose. Okay, then next we continue with the step number 3. Step number 3 is we will look at the carbon number 1. So carbon number 1. This is carbon number 4, yeah, because when we count, it is always from here, carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number 4. So now we will look at carbon number 1. So carbon number 1, we see that OH is on top. OH is on top. So if OH is on top, then this must be a beta. Yeah, this must be a beta. So that's why it is a beta galactose. So this is a very easy step. Yeah, 3 easy steps that allow us to identify all 5 types of the monosaccharide easily. So we can try on the second example here. So in second example, same thing, 3 steps. Step number 1, look at the shape. The shape show that this is a pentagon. So if this is a pentagon, then that means that these might be the fructose. These might be the ribose. These might be the deoxyribose. Then we proceed to step number 2. So in step number 2, we will look at the number of the carbon. The number of the carbon. So from here, we can see this is carbon number 1. This is carbon number 2. This is carbon number 3. Carbon number 4. Carbon number 5. There's only 5 carbon. So if there's only 5 carbon only, so that means that these might be either the ribose. Yeah, either it is the ribose or it is the deoxyribose. Okay, then next we move on to the step number 3. So step number 3 is we will look at the carbon number 2. Yeah, we will look at the carbon number 2. So carbon number 2 here, we will see that there's only OH. You don't see H, yeah? If it is a H, then it is deoxyribose. But obviously at carbon number 2, it is OH. So if it is a OH found, then that means that definitely this is the ribose sugar. And then if you want, yes, you can move to step number 4. Yeah, so step number 4 is we will look at the carbon number 1. Yeah, we will look at the carbon number 1. So carbon number 1 shows that the OH is at the bottom plane. Yeah, the OH is at the bottom. Yeah, it's at the bottom plane. Sorry, bottom at the bottom. Okay, so if the carbon number 1 OH at the bottom plane, then that means that this is definitely the alpha. So it is alpha ribose. So with that, yeah, hopefully this example can help you to learn how to identify all 5 types of the monosaccharide easily.